I am Stuart Smith, and I'm the Executive Director here at MUSC. And as David said, I've been around here not since 1824, but feels like almost that long, 39 years. And I've been in my present position for 15 years. One of the things I did actually just before I assumed the position I'm in now, I was a Director of Strategic Planning. So strategic planning is very important to me. I think it's critical in an organization, and I'm going to have a chance today to talk about a strategic plan. I won't say it's the first strategic plan at MUSC. I'm sure there were a few, probably one in 1825, 26, 27, but this is probably the most broad-based one because it involves, this is the clinical enterprise portion of the strategic plan. What David referred to earlier was the university's plan for the overall university. This one is specific to the hospital, the practice plan, and the College of Medicine, which basically is our medical staff. So it's like having a community hospital different in terms of the focus of this particular plan. We actually did one of these in the early 90s. And I won't go through the history back that far, but I will go through some of the history. Now, normally, there would be two of us here. I would do the historical portion, and then Jack Foy's up. Actually rolling out now. He's taking this week off. His son is graduating from medical school this week, and he chose appropriately to spend time with his family. So he sends his regrets, and I will try to do my very best to replace him, which, if you know Jack Foyser, is impossible to do. But I'm going to tell him when I see him, congratulations, that was a great job. So, okay. I'm supposed to follow direction. All right. This is what and I've done this with Dr. Foyser several times. What I'm trying to do here is talk about what my section is. And I do talk about the history because I think it's important to understand that we have done strategic planning, and I think the effectiveness of an organization is directly related to how effective strategic planning is. I'll also talk about some of the things that we've done in the last 10 years in the medical center in particular, but also in the UMA. This is a graph that our consultant, we used a consultant named Dan Beckham. He is someone who I met in the early 90s. Actually, he was working for Bonjour St. Francis at the time, but I remembered him from that. And he's a national consultant, publishes a lot, and wisely chose a number of years ago to move from Wisconsin to South Carolina. So he was local, and he and I had some conversation, and he helped us. And I'll go through the process in a few minutes. But this is a graphic display that he came up with about MUSC. If you go to the baseline, the bottom of that, he would say that was the year 2000. That, for purposes of this exercise, we would say the bottom line down here is 2000. And what we talk about now is where we are today. And then what we're going to talk about a little bit later is the implementation of the plan. And then our goal is to be basically a top 25 academic medical center by 2015. And top 25 means in safety, in patient satisfaction, in efficiency, which is one of our real challenges, in research, you name it, we want to be in the top 25, and we think that is doable. We're probably we use U.S. News and World Report as one of the bases, and UHC is another basis, and we're probably in the 40s. We're certainly in the top 50, so out of 5,000 hospitals, we start off at a pretty good point, but we would like to be in the top 25. So this is a graphic. I'll show you this again in a minute. So let me talk about the strategic plan, and I go back to the year 2000. Now, I've been in this business a long time, almost 45 years, and we go through periods of crisis, and we think it can't get any worse. And so what I'm telling you is what we face right now is not as bad as it was in 2000. I want to go through this, and this presentation that we originally did for the faculty and the clinical faculty. And how many people were here in 2000? Okay, fair number. All right, I'm going to describe where we were in 2000 and see if you recognize this. These were the strategic issues in 2000. We actually did a plan at that point in time, a university plan. New leadership. There's nothing more chaotic than to try to change leadership, particularly if you change a lot at once. Well, in the year 2000, Ray Greenberg replaced Jim Edwards as president of the university. Lathan McCurdy had been dean and vice president for medical affairs for a number of years. He was retiring. The leadership in the UMA, the practice plan, was in transition, so there was an enormous change all at once. A lot of angst. Changing priorities. For those of you who were here in the 90s, in the late 90s, there was a heavy emphasis in the university toward research. There was a lot of investment in research. I think it has served us well, and probably in hindsight was a great strategy. Some of the money that did that was as a result of a deal the university did with Columbia HCA to manage the hospital. If you know the history of it, you know that that did not take place, but in that process we moved a lot of money around, and the university invested a lot of money in research. And that's probably the biggest change in my career at MUSC, is the level of research has gone from almost nothing to a significant amount, relatively speaking. In the 90s, when we did our strategic plan, we were talking about research at a level of about $20 million a year. That put us in the bottom third of medical schools. There are about 120 medical schools, so we were in the bottom third of medical schools. In the time since then, mainly, in my opinion, driven by this investment in research, we've moved past a third of the medical schools, so we're now in the top third. So we've gone from probably 85 to somewhere in the high 30s. Our goal is 25. That's important. That's also part of this top 25. So the priorities had been on research. Now, this is a clinical enterprise planning group, and the clinical faculty were nervous because they said all the money's going into research and none of it's going into clinical. So ARC was not even on the drawing board. We had an old hospital. We were stretched for beds like we are now, and we had focused on research, and the clinical faculty said we need to focus on clinical. Okay, so that was a big issue. Financial position. We feel angst right now because our financial position isn't strong, and we're running through a period I hope is temporary, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. We've lost some surgical capability, and when the amount of surgery goes down, the total bottom line goes down. But the financial position in 2000 was about as bad as you could get. We were all broke. The hospital started an authority in 2000 with negative cash. Nobody in their right mind would do that, but we were not in our right mind. We took what we got and we became an authority. UMA had invested money in primary care. In the mid-90s, primary care was the answer, and UMA invested a lot of money, so there was no money in UMA, and the College of Medicine was desperately trying to cut back. So on campus, in the three components, the university, the hospital, and practice plan, all broke. Okay, so this was the lead, folks, in hindsight. Faculty morale, I think you already know what the answer to that was. The interviews with the faculty, you'd have thought they were all going to leave next week because there was no hope. We did have a master plan that was done in the late 90s that said we were short about 150 beds. So we knew that. We also knew that our practice had been almost totally on the downtown campus, and we needed to get out to suburbs where the patients were because nobody wanted to drive downtown to fight traffic in the park. Okay, so those were the issues. What did we do? Well, at that time we recruited the new dean, Jerry Reeves. We were becoming an authority. July 1, 2000, we became authority whether we wanted to or not. We knew we needed to improve our financial performance, and we knew we needed some kind of new facility. Mark was known at that time as Phase 1, and we knew we had to get off campus. Now, I won't spend an inordinate amount of time. I apologize for taking detail, but I think it's important to understand the history of where we are, how we got to where we are now. Okay. Now, tactics. I'll go through these fairly quickly. KPMG is a national accounting firm. They happen to be doing some work in South Carolina. We just had the Columbia HCA deal that didn't go through, and we knew we had to be more competitive. We had to deal with the marketplace, and we were very fortunate that KPMG consulting firm came in and said we must become an authority so we can be related to the marketplace. We were working on a facilities master plan. Quality started to become very important at that time. It was a big study about the Institute of Medicine that basically said if you go in a hospital, you're at great risk. 100,000 people die a year in hospitals. Nobody talked about that. And this was a bold move by a national group to say we've got to come out and admit that we're an unsafe place to be. So that was just coming out. Again, we wanted to do the financial performance and we wanted to decide this. Now, what we accomplished, we became an authority in 2000. In 2001, our board selected architects for what turned out to be Azure River Tower. Let me tell you, it's an important point here. In 2001, we selected architects. In 2008, we opened the building. So that's how long it takes to get from one point to the other. And I don't think it's unrealistic to think Phase 2, which we'll talk about briefly, is probably somewhere in 2018 or 19 at best, because you got to design the building, you got to design. We started to focus on patient safety, and we actually went to HUD and got borrowing in 2003. Now, this is a very busy slide, and I'll go through it quickly, but the point is that on the left-hand side, these were the things we were focused on in 2000 and 2002. Cost of care, customer service, management effectiveness, medical staff involvement, information decision-making. We were worried that we were making some converting to an authority, and CMH came into play because it was basically being phased down. If you go to the right-hand side of that slide, you can see that we just changed the name to reduce costs, provider choice, employer choice, improve quality, and information technology. And if those sound remarkably familiar, the pillars